Let's talk about Justyn Ross back like he never left and looking great out there at practice. Mahomes making some incredible throws to nobody's surprise, as was Travis Kelce getting into yet another altercation. But first, how about those? All right, today's practice came and went, and it was more positive than yesterday's, and I'll get into why here in a second, but this marked the second to last camp practice and the last padded practice, with the final one being tomorrow, and will definitely be a lighter, more than likely 10-10-10 day before Friday is off, and then preseason game number 2 is here. Also worth noting, a plethora of coaches spoke today, but so did Mike Borgonzi, the assistant GM. He mentioned there are 37 new players that weren't around last year, whether it was the practice squad, the roster, or the active reserve list. And now that preseason games are ramping up, evaluation is ongoing not only for the players on the team, but players all around the league as they look at others who are showing out as well. They have guys on their board that they rank and may want to trade for, claim off waivers, get on the practice squad, etc., and are currently working that board as they evaluate these games from Chiefs players and again, all around the league. Another thing I found interesting that Borgonzi mentioned was about wide receiver Toney, who, as most of you know, hurt his knee on the first day of training camp and needed a cleanup procedure on it. But he was asked about KT and his expectations for a return, and Mike said, "We will just see how he is health-wise, but want to make sure he's 100%. So we aren't going to rush it and have no expectations other than taking his recovery day by day and seeing how it goes." And that basically confirms what I already figured. Even though there is a report out there circulating saying that the Chiefs expect Toney to be back for week 1, I seriously doubt if he suits up that he will play that much. They're going to ramp this man up, and I could also see him going on IR for the first 4 weeks of the season and getting activated after that to be ultra conservative, because again, the Chiefs have no plans to rush him out there on the field, per the words of Mike Borgonzi, especially considering how dangerous KT is with the ball in his hands and how important that's going to be in the second half of the season as well as the postseason. But speaking of injuries, let's go there for a bit, because there are a few players that did return to practice and one that left early today with a shoulder issue. First up, those who did not practice today was wide receiver Nico Remigio, who dislocated his shoulder yesterday in a 1v1, and it was actually on this exact play that you're watching right now. Looks like it hurt. Hopefully it's a minor injury. I am concerned, though, about dislocated joints, especially considering tight end Jody Fortson recently dislocated his shoulder and was just placed on season-ending IR yesterday. But hopefully Nico's shoulder was less damaged than Fortson's was when it popped out. Anyway, next was cornerback Nick Jones, who fractured a couple of fingers in the preseason game against the Saints. Snead is still out nursing that aggravated knee, and the longer he's out, the more I grow slightly concerned, considering this has been an issue for Snead since the playoff run last season. Toney, of course, didn't practice due to recovering from knee surgery. Defensive tackle Turk Wharton has now missed a few days in a row with a re-aggravation of sorts, I believe, to the same knee that he had surgically repaired after tearing his ACL last year. And then Chris Jones was the only other player who didn't practice, as he's still holding out from camp and hopefully working out a long-term deal with Kansas City. I talked about that more in yesterday's video in case you missed it. It's at the end, and there's no real update here on the Chris Jones situation other than defensive line coach Joe Cullen answering a couple questions today about him during his presser. He said he's been staying in touch with Chris, checking up on him, and noted that Chris is working hard and, quote, "We will welcome him with open arms when he gets back here." Cullen then said, quote, "Eventually this thing will get done and he'll be back out there at practice and leading us." And I didn't take that to mean eventually a deal will for sure get done, but that eventually, regardless of a new deal or not, Chris Jones will be back out there being the leader he is on the team, though I would much prefer a long-term deal get done. And then the only other player from today's practice that left early due to injury was offensive lineman Nick Allegretti. He reportedly is dealing with a shoulder injury of some kind, and hopefully it's minor indeed, because he's a very reliable depth piece that can play all over the O-line. And on the subject of the offensive line coach Andy Heck complimented the two new tackles today, saying they are talented, come with experience, they've integrated very well, communicate well, although everyone is still working on unity as a whole since the tackles are new, so it's a work in progress, but improving every day. Somebody else who is improving every day is wide receiver Rashee Rice, though he actually had a minor scare today as he was spotted going into the medical tent for a moment with the trainers looking at what appeared to be his lower leg. But fortunately, he walked out on his own power and was seen back out there with the ones on offense pretty quickly. So, Nothing really there. Then running back Isaiah Pacheco is still out there at practice looking good, moving nicely, but still donning that yellow "do not touch me" jersey. I do think he should be ready to go by week 1 of the regular season, though it's hard to know at the moment if he will be a full go or not. Next up, in some good news, a few players returned to practice today, so I want to talk about that after I let you all know. If you want to join a private fantasy football draft with me, Editor Troy, some of the mods on the channel, and other members of the HBTC community, I have a $10 private draft as well as a $25 private draft through Underdog Fantasy, the official fantasy sports company of the channel for the 2023 season. And if you do head on over to play with me, the mods, etc., make sure to use code HBTC at sign up to get your first deposit of up to $100 matched. Links to that as well as both private drafts are in the description. But back to practice with some good news, because 3 players returned today, with those 3 being safety Mike Edwards, whose foot got stepped on, I believe, in the Saints game, was dealing with some swelling, but appears to be better now because he was out there. And then Amir Smith-Marset, who reportedly tweaked his groin yesterday at practice, was back out there today, as was fan favorite Justyn Ross, who also left yesterday's practice near the end in a cart after meeting briefly with the trainers in the medical tent. Andy Reid said yesterday during his presser that it was a knee/hamstring/shin issue, quote, something down there, and noted that Justyn Ross was getting checked out by the staff as Big Red was currently speaking to the media. Later on, though, Ian Rappaport shared that Ross's injury appeared to not be a serious one, and it seems Ian's source was spot on because Justyn was out there today seemingly unhindered, unbothered, whatever word you want to use. He could be seen jogging out to practice, then catching punts during warmups, and had this fantastic one-on-one rep here against Lamar Jackson, leaping up for a back shoulder grab, and Lamar actually held his left arm most of the way down, but Justyn said, "No problem, I still got the other arm," and ended up coming down with the grab. A very nice play from Ross here, certainly. Justyn also caught a touchdown pass from Mahomes and teams as Patrick quickly lofted the ball up to him, and Justyn went up to get it, beating Jalen Watson, who was there in coverage on that play. And speaking of Jalen, defensive backs coach Dave Merritt spoke today and said that he keeps rotating both Jalen Watson and Joshua Williams in and out with the hope that, quote, one of the guys will step up and take the job, and until consistency is shown on a day-to-day basis, right now we will continue to rotate them. They will get to the point where they can just be themselves, and hopefully one of them can emerge as the starter. So, okay, it looks like we have a nice little defensive back battle on our hands. Joshua Williams was seen out there today with McDuffie, and Williams did win this rep here, getting his hand on the ball in a 1v1 rep against Ty Scott in the end zone. Another DB who had an incredible rep today was Trent McDuffie, one-on-one against Sky Moore, and oh, buddy, was it a good one. Sky appeared to have McDuffie beat early with a great move off the line, but Trent not only spun around to relocate Sky, but ended up making a play on the ball and coming up with the interception. Coach Merritt complimented McDuffie today, saying he's a smooth player who, if he makes a mistake, doesn't go out there and repeat them, and he's progressing the way Dave would like to see him progress. And I, for one, am very excited for Trent this season, and with Snead continuing to battle issues with that knee, we need Trent to stay healthy even more so. Anyway, more practice highlights. While Sky lost that rep against McDuffie, I can't forget to mention that yesterday he also, talking about Sky, had a hell of a catch as Mahomes scrambled to his right and threw the ball all the way across the field to the left sideline, and Skyyder Man himself refused to let that ball hit the ground. Wide receiver coach Connor Embry said that Sky will obviously have a bigger role this year heading into year 2 with a much better grasp of the offense, and while some of the role is up to him and based on how he performs, Connor expects a lot from Sky this season. Another nice pass from Mahomes yesterday was this play here featuring a scramble to the left and a very nicely lofted ball to wide receiver Rick James is what I like to call him, who wide receiver coach Connor Embry also spoke about today, calling Richie a true vet who knows what to do, and noted that Richie has picked up the playbook quickly and doesn't repeat mistakes. Richie was also the highest graded receiver in last week's game against the Saints, and someone I'm very excited about this season with Patrick Mahomes. Another receiver with a W rep was Justin Watson, who won this route here against the ever so talkative DiCaprio Boodle. Blaine Gabbert threaded a nice ball here to Rashee Rice, who showed a very quick burst as he turned upfield. Rice also had a great contested catch last game against the Saints, and of course had to snag another one here, keeping the ball through contact and coming up with the reception. And while it's no surprise that Patrick Mahomes is a very accurate QB, he had to let everybody know as he hit all 3 of these targets, and then also threw a perfectly placed ball to MVS here on this play, threaded it right to the guy with McDuffie in airtight coverage. A heck of a throw and great play overall. Another nice play was this rep here from tight end 1, Travis Kelce, as he he went up against safety Justin Reid and came out with the W near the sideline. On this next play, though, it looks like Kelce was going to beat another safety in Brian Cook, but Cook turned on the jets and made a diving play to slap that ball away. Cook cooked, I guess you could say. I'll probably never say that again, but had to throw it in there at least once. And while these guys continue battling and challenging each other, apparently Kelce is still getting pissed off at defenders trying to punch the ball out at the end of these plays. If you remember, Kelce got into it a week or two ago with DiCaprio Boodle, which required Brian Cook to step in and intervene. A day or two later, linebacker Jack Cochran tried to punch the ball out on Kelce after he already landed in the end zone on this goal line play, and Kelce returned the favor by actually punching Jack Cochran in the back of the head and let him know he did not like that one bit. Well, another bit of a scuffle reportedly happened today as Nate Taylor shared that Travis Kelce was once again involved in a skirmish. Quote, in a team period, Kelce shoved Joshua Williams and Mike Edwards. Kelce was upset with the defenders trying to punch the ball from Jerick McKinnon. Mahomes broke up the kerfuffle, never heard of that word in my life, by shouting stop several times. Stop, stop, stop. Well, quit punching the ball, I guess, and Kelce will quit throwing hands, maybe, if you're lucky. Thankfully, though, training camp is about to come to an end, and hopefully Kelce's rage at his own teammates disappears along with it. Okay, obviously, it's not that big of a deal, but I found it entertaining that Kelce was once again back at it with the defense, willing to do whatever it takes to let them know he does not like it when people try to punch the ball out in practice, whether it's done to him or a teammate like Jerick McKinnon. And with all that being said, are you guys as glad as I am that Ross is back and looking just fine out there? Also, what are the odds, in your opinion, that Travis Kelce loses it on someone in an actual game this season, considering how many times he's been losing it in practice so far? It's been many years since I've seen that happen to Kelce in a game, but let me know either way in the comments down below. And until next time, let's go. Let's freaking go. How about those?